part of the discussion, we'll look at the general layer of emotion that causes us to believe that we are doing the right thing when we're actually doing the wrong thing. Yeah. Yep.
Could I just get you to please put the stuff that here into the context of your own experience? How have you come to these? How have you used these in your own life and struggles? Or is that
good
a
question.
valid question?
Yeah. If I can give it, well, basically my entire life is built upon these 6 things. Actually, my entire life, I don't ever hold on to an opinion as truth unless it is in this range of emotions here and intellect here. So I don't hold on to any other truth unless it goes into both of those boxes. Now, I can bring probably lots of different examples to it. Okay, is there a law of attraction? Well, let's say at the beginning, all you're doing is asking the question, is there a law of attraction? Now, many people in the world would say there's no such thing as a law of attraction, right? But my suggestion is, instead of saying there is no such thing, you first need to go through and do some experiments. So what I do with my life is I experiment. So I go, okay. Firstly, I experiment with my mind. I go, okay, if there is such a thing as a law of attraction, then the way that it's been presented to me by society generally, or by people who think they know about the law of attraction, is that all I need to do is think something long enough and it will happen. Now, I don't know if you've ever put that into practice, but I haven't found that to work myself, right? So after I did some experiments about that, I believed that if there was a law of attraction, then it had nothing to do with the mind. It's a valid assumption based on the experiments that I undertook in terms of thinking something and whether it came true or not. And then what I did was I had to be far more self-reflective and humble, and I had to feel about my own emotions. And I realised, okay, I've got some emotions about, for instance, emotions about money. Almost everyone on the planet has emotions about money, right? Most of us have a lot of fear-based emotions about money. So okay, I recognise I've got some fear-based emotions about money. If I deal with some of these emotions about money by actually feeling them and releasing them, let's experiment with that and to see whether my attractions with money change. So when I first started doing these talks, for the first 5 years, 4 years probably, the first 4 years, I never received a single donation for the first 4 years. Obviously, I had some emotions about money, because if I was sitting in an audience listening to a lot of this information, I'd probably donate just without being asked, right? So I had to look at that and go, okay, people appreciate the information, but I'm getting, like, it's getting to the point where I'm going to have to go out and work and stop doing these talks, right? And I didn't want to do that, so I needed to look at myself to see whether there is such a thing as the law of attraction about money. And so what I did was I experimented with that. I went through some emotions and then tried to see whether there was a correlation between dealing with the emotion and an outcome, which was receiving more funds so that I could continue to do these talks. And what I found in the end was that there was a direct correlation. In fact, it often happened the very day that I dealt with a specific emotion related to money. The very next day I would receive some more money to do something that I wanted to do that I couldn't do before then, right? And so I started to see, well, there's this issue of money, and there was obviously something going on with my feelings attracting things, not my thoughts. And so now that I've done that with that issue, I can do that, and that's not the first issue I chose. The first issue I chose was with God and a relationship with God, because to me that's the most important thing. But that was just giving you an example of how you can experiment. Right? Most people are not willing to experiment right to the end. And when I say right to the end, most of you will not allow yourself to get completely broke, right, in order to find out what emotions are inside of you that cause your money issues. So what most of us finish up doing is we get down to, you know, what we feel is an acceptable buffer in the bank, and then what do? We then do something physically to go and fix that issue up, right? That's what we do. Because we're not willing to face the emotion of being destitute. Right? We're not willing to experiment with that emotion. Yes? So...
So AJ, do we have to actually get to the point where we're actually broke and have nothing to actually feel the destitute? Oh, that emotion that we need to release?
No, we don't have to.
Yep.
But as you've found in your own life,
I know.
you didn't deal with it before then. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay.
So the reality is we don't have to come up against a wall every time that we deal with something. But unfortunately, for most of us, we're not willing to deal with something before we hit that wall, right?
Is it because, like what I found, it's the process of, it's the process that you go through which allows slowly the different emotions to come up in relation, like for instance,
yes.
the money issue.
So if you think about my recommendations to you and to Anto about money issues, you know how you were so afraid to go and buy something because if you bought something, you'd have no money left. And then if you had no money left, then you didn't know what you were going to do, right? And both being professional people, you're used to having a steady buffer and a flow of money, right?
Yep.
So this time you wanted to go and buy something, but you weren't prepared to go and buy it, and there was all this fear driving you. And my recommendation to you guys was buy it and then because it's what you want, and then let all the emotions come up about not having any money left over to build on it, not having any money, let all that. And as you've worked out, that's exactly what's coming up for you.
Yeah, but we don't have to get to the point where I'm feeling at the moment a lot of those issues are coming up for both of us. And there's a lot of anger and a lot of fear about it. But but we don't have to get to the point where if we've got zero in the account to deal with that emotion. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause I don't
it
feel
depends
like
on a
God
few
would
things, doesn't it?
Yep.
It depends on how humble you are.
Okay, yep.
Because if you're very resistive, you might have to get to that point.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And it depends on how much fear you have. It depends on how much trust in God you have. It depends on how much in personal investment you have in the outcome. Can you see? And
the lack of faith too. I'm feeling that's a big one in God. Of not having faith.
For many of us, you see, we've got so many different emotions, right, inside of us, and you can see that one little issue, like the money issue, can bring up lots and lots of different emotions that are not childlike inside of us, that they've obviously been modified and they're no longer childlike. And as a result of that, going through the process will help us immensely to discover these emotions and work our way through them. Now, how bad things get in our life is completely dependent upon how resistive we are to actually having these qualities develop inside of ourselves. Totally. It depends upon
just to keep focusing on on the humility,
and having no investment in the outcome, which is very
hard,
isn't it? You when we talk about money, everybody wants to have an investment in the outcome, right? And I'm saying no investment in it. That's what a child would do. A child's perfectly willing to spend its last cent and not know where the next one is coming from. Why? Because the child believes that the next cent is going to come from mummy and daddy. Is that not true? Right. And then we grow up to be an adult, and what do we now believe? The next cent is not going to come from mummy and daddy, but who's your daddy? God's your daddy. God wants to give you everything you want, right?
But AJ, would you still say that as a child, if we've got that still that expectation that our mum and dad will provide, we could still have that as adults? Is that true? So
and instead we expect society to provide, what we do is refer that emotion onto somebody else generally. So many of us have an expectation for something like unemployment benefits, for example, because of that same feeling that we don't feel that we're able to create ourselves what we need, and without having to work very, very hard for it. Yep.
Yep.
Can you see the relationship though between the childlike state, which is this childlike state of daddy gives it $20, the child wants to spend it straight away. Generally, it's very rare that a child wants to save it without having a lot of bartering with mum and dad about that. Daddy goes, "Do you want to put it in the bank? Do you want to put it?" And why does daddy do that? Because daddy wants to put it in the bank too, but the child generally wants to just go and spend it because it wants to utilise the resources that are available to it instantly. You see? And if we were not living in fear, we would want to do that all the time. We would want to utilise the resources available to us instantly. We don't want to store resources away because who knows what will happen tomorrow? It might be dead. Like in the first century, I said I gave an illustration of a man building up lots and lots of storehouses, and he got his very biggest storehouse built, and he died the very next day, that very night. I said in the illustration, and what good was it all to him then? You see, a child doesn't do that. A child just engages the process of using every single investment it gets in a manner that's completely in harmony with no fear and its desires. And when we do that, we get to become very trusting with God.
So AJ, when's that point? Like, what's the point when we get to that? Like, I feel
when all of these have gone.
The struggle at the moment, like the struggle of that, I don't know, like yeah.
You'll get to it when all of the emotions that are in disharmony with love have been released on the subject of money. Then a feeling of peace will come over you instead of you going, "Oh, what's going to happen in the next moment?"
Then how many blocks do we have?
How long is a piece of string, Jane? It depends upon you, your family, your upbringing, how your family brought you up to believe, what they brought you up to believe, what society brought you up to believe. Honestly, if you were living in India, it would be a lot lower threshold. Or if you were living in Somalia, it would be a lot lower threshold than what you currently have. In other words, they would readily accept these beliefs and teachings in comparison to yourself on the subject of money because they have none. And so therefore they've never had any to save, and they've never had any to worry about, they've never had any to invest all of this time and energy intellectually and emotionally on. Yeah? And so therefore to them it's not even a problem. Right? So in the Western world, we have a whole set of problems that are very, very different to other parts of the world because of these emotions that are a part of our upbringing. Yep.
Yeah, so you just keep.
Yeah, the reason why you're asking the question is because you have fear. You are worried that you're going to have to become destitute before you deal with the emotion. And I'm saying to you, well, perhaps that is going to be required before you unlock yourself from the emotions themselves. It doesn't have to be the case, but it depends. Every single person here is very different with how they've been brought up, right? Even though we've all been brought up in a Western society generally here, we've all been brought up very differently by our parents. And so because of that, we all have very different belief systems about money. And as a result of that, once we start confronting them, it's going to be very, very different emotionally. Yeah. But can you see every time so notice the non-childlike feelings, which are, I'm afraid, I don't have any trust in God, I'm worried about the outcome, I have an investment in the outcome. They're all non-childlike feelings. They're telling us the truth. They're telling us that, yes, there's still emotion there that needs to be addressed, that needs to be released, emotions that are out of harmony with love. Because if we were in love, we wouldn't have fear. There's no fear in love. So if we would go through each day feeling like, oh yeah, like bank account, no bank account, who cares? It's not a lack of responsibility feeling either. I am completely responsible for everything that I spend my money on, as you well know, right? So I'm not encouraging a lack of responsibility here. I'm encouraging trust in God. God provides for every single animal on this earth, and they don't have to do a single thing.
So it's the same with us, AJ. Like we don't have to go back to work. Like I'm just saying, like things like that. We feel to get money, we need to go to work. But I think it's because we haven't felt, like I know personally, because we haven't felt that God can give
Exactly.
us the abundance, you know,
Exactly.
like that we can survive just relying on God.
Exactly.
Like, it's it's
And I'm
huge.
not saying you won't have to work, because obviously working is a part of the things you need to learn about love. Because if you love yourself, you'll want to care for yourself. So that is a part of what you would discover through this process, that I want to love, but I wouldn't want to work in a job that I hated.
Well, that's the thing. If we're working in, what our desires are, like.
So if Vantu went back to being a lawyer, he would be totally the opposite of what he doesn't want to do that. He's never really wanted to do that, right? And so if he went back to that, then of course he wouldn't be loving himself, he'd just be acting out of fear. But there is work that you can engage. Mary and I work pretty much every day, right? As most of you who know us well know, there's very rarely a day goes past where we're having a relaxing day, right? In the sense of not, some kind of work happening. And the reason why is because we love our work, and because we don't even view it as work, right? So we're just busy every day, just doing what we love doing. And when you engage some kind of a job with that passion that you love doing, things will come to you automatically. And this is what we need to learn from God, and what we need to learn from all the animals, and what we need to learn from our environment. We are the pinnacle of God's creation, and yet we act like we're the least important to God. From God's perspective, we were the pinnacle of his creation, and yet we act like, every single day, we act like God doesn't care about us at all. That's how we act. And yet, we've got plenty of evidence that there's plenty of care around us. It's just a matter of us embracing an attitude or an emotion. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
So getting back to the law of attraction question that was asked, so with regard to the money, all I did was experiment with this law of attraction and emotions that actually affected the law of attraction with money, for example. And then as I experimented with that, I saw an immediate result. And therefore I can measure whether I've actually dealt with something or not. And that then causes me to believe in the law of attraction. And it also causes me then to believe more firmly that if I look at my emotions that are out of harmony with love, it will always benefit my life. And now I trust that implicitly. Right? So initially I didn't trust that. Initially I didn't really believe that. But now I trust that implicitly, because I've engaged that. My life is engaging that every single day, and I get results every single day from that. So that's why I trust it implicitly. Yep. Fair?
So you're saying that basically you adopted all these childlike things in your experiment.
Yes.
To get to the conclusion that you're after.
Yes. So you know how the world is addicted to being adult. Like we put on a facade, we get all dressed up, and we get all flash, and we're addicted to the facade. We like well, a lot of people are dead broke, and yet they're driving around, an expensive vehicle, and they're living in an expensive home and so forth. They're working in a job they don't like to support it all, and they're not living an honest life, because it's nothing what they want, really. They're doing it for emotional reasons. But if they adopted a childlike attitude, does a child live in a facade? Like, a child will do a poo right in front of you. I'm not suggesting that you need to do that, but I'm saying, you go down the lolly aisle and a child will scream when it doesn't get what it wants. And I'm not saying you should do that either, because both things would be out of harmony with love, right? And a child does need to learn what is harmonious with love, but a child is not got this investment in what other people think of it. And as we grow up to be adults, we are totally invested in what other people think of us, right? You think about how much of your life is planned around what other people think of you. A lot of our life is planned around it. And there are...
So really, in the second box in the second column, the emotions that are harmonious with love must always be felt as truth.
Yeah.
That's a thing that's going to occur once we've been through all the other boxes pretty much, isn't it?
Yes.
So like with Jane, with her issues about God reliance, say.
With the money issue?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So she has to be very honest about she can intellectually like many times intellectually we think it's loving to work, but we kind of crush our souls emotionally.
And that's not loving.
Yeah, so then we...
So I agree it is loving to work,
Yep.
but I can't agree that it's loving to work in a job you hate.
Yeah. So then we go over to the emotions that feel painful and we go, okay, there must be something. It seems like a big feedback loop for me.
It is.
Like, so we feed back and we go, okay, I need to modify this intellectual thought that I should be doing this.
Yes.
So what would love be doing?
So love would be embracing a job that I love.
Yeah.
So what I would do is give up the job that I hate and immediately, not put it off, embrace the job I love and see what happens.
Yeah. And so then I go into the emotions that I'm not sure of the answer, but I feel like, well, God would probably provide for me if He created me with this unique soul full of passion.
So that's a thought?
That's a thought, yeah.
So that's a possibility only because I
Yeah.
haven't yet known it as a truth.
So then I
So I embrace the process. I've become open and transparent. And do all
become
these
very
things.
afraid.
Yes, that's a part of the experiment.
Yeah.
The part of the experiment is to bring up all of your fear and bring up all of your rage and your anger and
But
your
then I
sadness
would
and-
say, then I would go to that box and go, hang on, this emotion is not harmonious with love, so I shouldn't do what it says. I should let my
Yeah,
intellect-
so the emotion might be you embrace the job and 2 weeks after embracing this new job that you love, you've got no money.
Yeah.
So what's the emotion?
terror.
Well, it begins with fear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So fear-based emotion. So I know the fear is not love, right? Fear is not love. And I know that my fear is not love. So what do? I continue to embrace the job and feel my fear. So, because remember I said, anything emotion that's out of harmony with love, fear is one of those emotions, needs to be released. And the only way you can release it, and we can talk more about this as we go, but the only way we can release it is by feeling it. So we have to actually feel the fear. But we still engage the job. And what will happen is when we release the fear of having no money, then we'll start getting some. Right?
But what I feel is that very often we get to that point, we feel afraid, we go, oh, my experiment didn't work. God doesn't work like that.
Yes, we give up the experiment just when it's about to teach us something.
We go hopeless instead of fearful.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we give up the experiment at the wrong time.
Yeah.
You see, we need to carry the experiment fully through, right the way through the emotion.
And we need to use it seems to me, we need to use our intellect to because emotionally nothing's...
Emotionally...
It's all stirred up.
Emotionally, inside we're screaming at ourselves going, stop this insanity, stop. Emotionally, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
But
if we
intellectually
use
we're
our
going,
intellect to go,
no.
hang on.
We're looking at the emotion, we're going, no, that's an emotion out of harmony with love because it's fear.
Yeah.
And I know that anything that's out of harmony with love must be addressed and must be
Should
released.
be
I've got to be,
released,
and the way I release it is by feeling it. So I have to feel it without acting upon it, without deciding to act in harmony with how the emotion is dictating me to act.
Yeah.
If I know I love the job, I stay with loving the job.
And that, to me, that makes it a whole network of discovering truth then.
Yes.
And this is the synthesis you're talking about, isn't it? I need to be able to engage both sides
Yes.
and go, hang on, I know this, I know in box 1 or in box 3, I'm sure, 2, in box 4, I'm sure that love is like this.
Yep.
So when I'm feeling something, I have to remember it's in error. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
Exactly. So what we need to do is we need to stop just responding to every emotion, because many of our emotions are going to be out of harmony with love, and we need to stop responding to them. We need to feel them but not respond to them. Do you understand the difference? Responding to them is living in them. Feeling them is just feeling them pass through you. So feel terrified. Let yourself feel terrified, but don't change your action just because you're terrified, unless you're in a life-threatening situation. Right? Don't change your action. And most of the time our fear comes up way out of harmony with what the actual environment is saying, like most of the time. Do you understand the difference? So we need to embrace the process, and as we embrace the process, whenever we get out of harmony with a childlike state, we know we're in error straight away. As soon as we're out of harmony with the childlike state, we are in error. We know we're in error. And so intellectually we can go, I know I'm in error. Emotionally, you might feel, no, damn this, no. Emotionally, you might be saying, no, I've got to go and get a job. I've got to go and get a job. I've got to go and get a job. Like, I have to do it. Like, that's emotionally what's screaming at you. But intellectually, you can still observe that emotion and go, yeah, you're just in error still. Because once you release this emotion, this panic will be gone from you. This panic and terror will be gone.
So what about if you have the opposite injury, which is, no, I don't think that I should have to work. Like, I've grown up in a family where a lot of things were done for me, and I feel like I'm entitled to expect.
So you experiment with that. You sit home on your bum, and you don't work.
There's no terror. There's no terror.
I'm just kicking back, relaxing. And eventually my house gets taken away from me, my car gets taken away from me, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, everything's taken away from me. And I'm sitting there and I'm still pondering, no, I still feel I'm in harmony with love. Obviously not,
Well, so by then you're probably getting angry, aren't you?
Well, exactly. By then you're getting angry, the expectations are coming up, the demand that society meets your addictions comes up. And so by then you're already starting to address some of the reasons why you sat on your backside doing nothing. Yeah. But can you see, either way, we've got to be willing to experiment. Yeah. Right, so that's the important thing, yes? Yeah. Now,